So previous lecture was introductory. We had pretty easy questions. There was no repetition in the letters that for the words that we were trying to calculate the number of possible ways they can be arranged or what's the total permutations of the word. So now in this lecture, we will have words that have vowels repeating or some letters repeating. Usually only vowels repeat in any English word. So we'll see that how many possible permutations shrink because of that, because there will be duplicates. So let's see how we do that. So the first word is create. Now I'll solve these questions in a very systematic way for people or audience that want to just apply the formula and want to just solve this in 10 seconds. The basic method is the same. So you can see that create is a 6-letter word. So you will just do 6 factorial divide by 2 factorial. 2 factorial because there is only one letter repeating E, which is a vowel. So E is repeating 2 times. So it's basically you just divide by 2 factorial, or just we are taking the half of this. Why? Because there are 2 E's and you cannot differentiate between both E's. They look identically same. It doesn't matter if I arrange the E together and then let's say this is a possible way of arranging create, or whether I do this, or whether I swap the E's, it doesn't make any difference. So since there are 2 E's, the total number of permutations will be cut in half. So because there will be 2 duplicates for each E. So it is just 720 divided by 2. So that's your answer, 360. That's the easiest way of doing this. Now in solving the question, because that's, because I'm an expert in this, so I can think like that, but I've indirectly told you the way how we actually also think about this. So we have solved the question, and I've also told you the logic behind this is that there are 2 E's. So we divided by 2 factorial, which is just 2. Because both E's are identical, there will be a duplicate for each possible combination. So we are counting each arrangement 2 times. So that's why we divided by 2. Moving on to the next question. So riddled basically is the word here. Now you can see that riddled it's a little bit more tricky because now we don't have a vowel, but that doesn't matter. We have the letter D, which is repeating 3 times. So again, applying the same logic, this is a 7-letter word. 7 factorial divided by 3 factorial because D is repeating 3 times. So this is just 5040, which is 7 factorial divided by 3 factorial, which is just 6. So 840 is your answer. Now this might take you some time, to divide these numbers because they get, as I told you in the first lecture, they scale very fast, they become very large, very fast, they grow exponentially. So what you can do is you can again use common sense, basic number sense, is that 7 factorial would be just 6 factorial times 7, 700 times 7, basically is 5,000, something around 5,000, and you divide that by 6, which would be something around 800. So 840 is the answer. Now, if you try to think about this intuitively, it's a little bit more complicated than create, because there you only had 2 duplicates for each possible arrangement. You had 2 E's, so you just cut in half. Now, you might be wondering that in riddled, why did I divide by 6 or 3 factorial, not by 3? Because the problem here is that you always use factorial, is because if you just consider the 3 D's or 3 D letters, you take them out, you think about them in isolation. You don't think about R, I, E, L, E, other letters. You think about the D's first, which are repeating. Now, if I treat them, each of them differently, D1, D2, or D3, well, how many possible combinations will I have? In that case, again, 6, because this is 3 factorial. If you arrange this D1, D2, D3, D2, D3, D1, if you try to move them around, you'll have again 6 ways. So that's why we are dividing this by 6. So now moving on to the next question. Banana. So the question here is that you might think, now we have 2 letters which are repeating. So you see the complexity is gradually increasing. So previously we had riddled and create, only one of the letters was repeating. Now you have A repeating, so you have 3 A's and 2 N. Well, you can think about them in isolation as well. You can take the 3 A's out, treat them in isolation, treat them differently, well, we can arrange this as 6 possible, 3 factorial, 6 possible ways, and n can be treated as n1, n2, which is just 2 factorial. So n can only be arranged 2 times. Well, it's only n1, n2 or n2, n1. So there are only 2 ways. So what I'll do is that banana is how many letters? 7. So it's 7 factorial. So this is 7 factorial divided by 3 factorial times 2 factorial. So which is 6 into 12. This is 12. Now, which basically comes around. Sorry, I made a mistake. Banana is a 6-letter word. So instead of 7, you'll have 6 here. So 6 factorial is 720. So divide that by 12. I think it comes around 60. So 60 is your answer. So basically, if you're using the formula, what you're doing is that you treat each of the repetitive letters, which was A and N, differently, and then you multiply their product, which is 12, and you divide it by the entire number, which is 6 factorial. So 60 will be your answer, because again, we are trying to shrink, or trying to count taking out of repetition. We have N 2 times and A 3 times. So there will be 2 duplicates of N's when you try to rearrange banana in all the different ways, and 3 duplicates for each A. So again, that's 6 for A, 6 different ways of arranging A, and 2 different ways of arranging N. So multiply that, it's 12. That's why you divide by 12. So moving on to the last question, we have rumor. Again, the same logic. So you see that the questions have been constructed in a very systematic, in an ordered way, that we initially in lecture 1 we had words that had no repetition, and then we had first 2 questions of this lecture, we had only 1 letter that was repeating. Now we had two letters that are repeating. So in this case, in rumor, same thing, we have R repeating 2 times and then U repeating 2 times. So you'll do the same thing. Rumor is again 6-letter word, so which is 6 factorial divided by 2 factorial and 2 factorial, which is just 6 factorial divided by 4. 6 factorial is just what, 720 divided by 4. So it comes around to be 180. So 180 is your answer. So again, once you get the hang of it, you don't have to think about these letters in isolation or differently. You can just use the formula, because now you can think about it intuitively and you can just automatically solve the questions like an algorithm. So just to explain this again, R is repeating 2 times, so 2 duplicates for R and 2 duplicates for U. And once you divide that, meaning we have 4 duplicates for each of the possible arrangements of this word rumor. So we are counting every possible arrangement 4 extra times, so 4 duplicates. So we have to take that into consideration and divide by 4. So really you only have 180 different possible combinations, because 720 had duplicates, like I explained, for R and U. So this is basically the end of lecture 2. Now we have considered words that have repetition as well. Into the next lectures, the complexity will gradually increase, and we'll see how to solve that intuitively. So the beauty of this is that you can solve each question. Doesn't matter how hard these topics are, but you can still think about this intuitively.